The View just walked right into a political storm they never anticipated. Rand Paul entered, fully prepared to dismantle every weak argument, every false claim, and every rude interruption aimed at him. As for Whoopi Goldberg, let's just say things didn't end in her favor. Tension filled the room, tempers flared, and soon enough, Whoopi was yelling, abruptly cutting to a commercial and leaving the audience stunned. So, what did Rand Paul say that caused Whoopi Goldberg to lose her composure?
Actually, Turkey doesn't want Iran to take over everything. Israel doesn't want Iran to take over everything. And in fact, Israel actually stands up for themselves all the time.
They end up being in a bigger war.
Let me finish. Don't interrupt.
Sunny Hostin was scrambling for words, and Joy Behar was frantically trying to change the subject. Trust me, you won't want to miss a moment of this. But before we dive in, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Did you do it? Great! Now, let's get into it. Rand Paul appeared on The View to talk about his book, The Case Against Socialism. Huge mistake. The hosts of The View weren't interested in a discussion. They were looking for a confrontation. And Rand, well, he was fully prepared to take them on. The moment Sunny Hostin spoke up, it was clear she was setting him up. She argued that Venezuela's downfall had nothing to do with socialism, blaming it on corruption instead of economic policies.
Here, but we don't get any free stuff. We don't have free health care. Our public education system is a problem.
Rand Paul wasted no time shutting that argument down. He stated, if you vote for socialism, you get socialism. The audience responded with loud applause.
The case against socialism, Bernie Sanders is no longer alone on the debate stage. It seems like we're hearing more and more about socialism. In fact, 43% of Americans think it's a good thing. You are on the complete other end of that. Tell us about this book.
Well, one of the things we learned in writing the book is a lot of people say, well, we're not for Stalin, we're not for Hitler, we're for Scandinavia. So as we were researching the book, we actually found that Bernie Sanders' form of socialism actually is unpopular and he would never get elected to anything in Denmark. In fact, the Prime Minister of Denmark, when he heard Bernie was going around saying they were socialists, says, no, we're not socialists. We have private property, a stock exchange, we have low corporate income taxes, we don't have a minimum wage. And the big difference, and this is where the big lie comes from. Bernie says we're going to give you all this free stuff, but we're only going to tax the rich people. In Scandinavia, they tax the working class, 25% sales tax, and an income tax starting at 60,000 is 60%. So really the difference between their country and our country is they do have more free stuff in Scandinavia, but they pay for it with massive taxes on the working class and the middle class.
The reaction was one Whoopi never saw coming. Her expression, absolutely priceless.
I live in Miami. There's tens of thousands of Venezuelan exiles living there. You talk a lot about Venezuela in your new book. I get a lot of political ads from the Republican Party. Donald Trump has tweeted this. Many have tweeted this. If you vote for Democrat, they will turn the United States into Venezuela. Do you think that's a fair statement to make?
Well, if you vote for a socialist, you might get socialism.
Come on, don't do that. Maduro is not a socialist. He's a corrupt, murderous thug who is starving his people.
That's not true.
That's not true? Maduro's not a thug and a murderer who's starving his people.
Let's have a conversation here. Chavez was a socialist, and socialism was the economic system of Venezuela.
It's a kleptocracy. It's not socialism.
But here's the question is, they voted for socialism. They voted... Let me finish.
No, I can't let you finish. If you're going to say Maduro's not a murderous thug, I'm not going to let you. Because that's a damn lie. And I've got a bunch of neighbors and friends who know this. Don't do this to me. Don't mansplain. I'm a 47-year-old.
Thanks to Senator Rand Paul. His new book is called The Case Against Socialism, and we'll be right back.
But that was only the start. Every time Rand Paul spoke, Whoopi attempted to cut him off. When the conversation turned to U.S. foreign policy, Rand calmly explained why endless wars were both reckless and pointless. That's when Whoopi lost it. You're just running away. What about our allies? What about the troops? Rand remained composed and hit back with a sharp reply. Should we stay in wars forever? Should we keep sending American kids into harm's way with no clear mission? No, Whoopi. That's not leadership. That's recklessness.
One of the things I've always supported about President Trump is actually one of the things I liked about President Obama, that we said we were overextended, that the Iraq war was a mistake. I think it's one of the reasons President Obama beat Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton had supported the Iraq war. I still think the Iraq war, regime change in the Middle East, and these wars are senseless. So does President Trump. He doesn't want to get us involved in another Iraq war in Syria. If anything, Syria is more complicated. The other is a practical concern. You have 50 soldiers. They're talking about moving 50 soldiers. Who goes to war with 50 soldiers? You have 50 soldiers and tens of thousands of Turkish troops amassing. The Turks are also allies. The Free Syrian Army were our allies for 7 years. They're allied with the Turks. The Kurds have been our allies. The Kurds, in all likelihood, are now going to be allies of Assad to try to carve out a place in Syria for themselves. It's a really complicated question. I guess from my perspective, I say any of these people out here, their kids have to go to war. War's not a chess game. People lose their limbs and people die, and I think it's the least we owe to the kids that we're going to send into this war. Why are we going to war and who are we fighting?
Ouch. Whoopi tried to counter, but Rand wasn't done yet. Turkey is causing chaos in the region, but you want to pretend this is simple? It's not. And maybe if you actually listened instead of shouting, you'd understand that. Boom! The room went completely silent. And Whoopi? Quiet. Her face flushed red, and she did the only thing she could think of. She cut to a commercial break. Yep, she ended the segment right there.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry. So, if you have allies and they are working with you and fighting with you, and 24 hours somebody wakes up and says, "No, we're out." Is that the right way to do this?
I think the way we look at war is we don't look at
No. Is that the right way to do it? Okay.
When we decide whether or not we're sending our young people into harm's way, we should obey the Constitution, which says we should declare war and put them in a war theater. But let me finish.
Okay.
And here's the thing about it, is if you ask these people, Lindsey Graham and the Cheney war and all these warmongers that want to stay at war forever, who are we going to declare war on? They don't know who. We're going to declare war on Turkey, our ally?
Should we ever
Free Syrian
walk
Army,
out
ally?
in the middle? It's like walking out.
We should never be there in the first place.
That's not the question. No, that's all good.
Next up, Sunny Hostin thought she had a gotcha moment. She aimed to criticize Rand Paul's tax policies, accusing him of wanting tax cuts only for the wealthy. Rand's response? Brutal. Sunny, the top 1% already pay 40% of the income taxes in this country. Meanwhile, the bottom 50%? They pay nothing. Sunny started to panic. She quickly tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, but Rand wasn't backing down. If you think taxes should be fair, why do you ignore the fact that people who make under $50,000 don't pay a dime? You want to call that oppression?
Massive taxes here, but we don't get any free stuff. We don't have free health care. Well, our public education system is a problem. Seems like the only people that get free stuff are the very, very wealthy.
We have a different form of taxation in our country. Ours is much more progressive. So we've taken the poor off of the rolls. They don't pay income tax anymore. Most people below $50,000 don't pay any income tax. The top 1% in our country pay 40%.
Our audience says that's not true.
Well, the IRS statistics say that the top 1% in our country pay 40% of the income tax, and that those making less than $50,000.
Donald Trump doesn't pay any income tax.
Sunny had nothing left to say. She just sat there blinking. Then came the moment that went viral. Desperate to recover, Whoopi tried to play the neutral card. I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm just American. Rand Paul's response? It obliterated her. Well, Whoopi, if you're just American, maybe you should listen to ideas that don't fit your narrative. That's what true Americans do. Bam! The crowd erupted. Whoopi, she just sat there, completely frozen. The producers rushed to cut the segment, and just like that, it was over. Rand Paul walked off the stage unshaken, while the View's host sat there utterly humiliated. Social media exploded. A Whoopi meltdown and Rand Paul destroys. The View. The hashtag started trending immediately. Even viewers who usually support the show were calling them out. One viral tweet summed it up perfectly. The View says they empower women. Then they spend an hour talking over a man who calmly lays out facts. The hypocrisy is unreal. And now, rumors are swirling that ABC execs are in full panic mode. Advertisers are reportedly pulling out after seeing the backlash. And some insiders are even speculating that The View might be on the chopping block. Could this really mark the beginning of the end for The View? One thing's for sure, Rand Paul came fully prepared. He exposed the show's hypocrisy, handled their interruptions like a pro, and walked away victorious. But now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Rand Paul just ended The View for good? Was Whoopi's meltdown the final straw? Or do you think The View will somehow bounce back from this? Drop a comment below, and let's talk it out. And before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. This story isn't over yet, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. I'll see you in the next one.